Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy, 12 Kyle, back in the building again. And we're doing something special in this episode. Well, they're all special, but we're doing something different. If you've been outside and you remember something that was very popular or became very popular during the pandemic when we were all on shutdown and lockdown, was the VERZUZ series. Now, if you were hiding under a rock or you weren't familiar, the VERZUZ series was a thing where you took one artist and pit them against another artist, and these two artists basically played, sometimes sung or DJ'd their catalogs. And the fans kind of went back and forth and decided, based on the songs that were played, who was the quote-unquote winner. And that process got me to thinking about having a versus, not so much as between two artists, but about artists and some of their particular albums. And the more and more I thought about it, I was like, hey, we've got quite a few artists who have great albums. Some would deem classic albums. And so it got me to thinking about maybe possibly having a situation where you take two albums from a particular artist and pit those two albums together. And then you come up with a criteria, which is key because a lot of times when we have conversations about music, there is no criteria. So, if you say, well, who's the best MC of all time, somebody, the natural response should be, well, what's the criteria? What is it based off of? But in this versus that you're about to hear, we actually have a criteria. We actually have a scoring system. And I'm looking forward to doing this. We are going to be talking about the debut and the sophomore albums from one Mary J Blige. Now, if you've been following the podcast, you know that I've done an album review for both albums, but it's a little different this time. This time it's going to be a versus. And as you can see from the marquee, or if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. You see that I got my homegirl back in the building. Britt is back again. Britt, what's good?
Not much. Tired of Mary J, like I said. I'm tired of do this though.
Right. I'm sure you've heard enough of Mary J leading up to this.
Probably get hate for that too, but yeah.
What's that?
You hate her. I don't hate her.
Yeah, it's been interesting. You had reached out and we were talking, and you was like, well, hey, what you got coming up? And I was like, well, hey, I'm about to kick off this VERZUZ series. And then you asked a little bit more about it. What was your thoughts when I sent you what we were going to talk about?
I was excited because I could do this all day. Like, I probably should have chose that career path. Well, it's funny doing podcasts, like being on Baylor's and everything. I used to want to be a radio jockey when I was
really.
Yeah, I loved LA radio. That's all I did was listen to it. Big Boy in the Morning, all that. And so I just never went that way. Don't know why, just didn't. And then podcasting got popular, and then Baylor had his, and yeah, so I'm excited. But then I love music. So when you came with this one, I was like, holy shit. Versus, I had like lived and breathed every single one. Every time they did one, whatever, from the very beginning. I don't know if you actually caught Timberland and Swiss Beats doing theirs. Yep. I stayed up till they were done.
Really?
Because they were late. If I remember right. They were late. And yeah. So I love stuff like this. So
before we even get into it, do you remember? Was there? I guess I'll put you on the spot. What was if you had to pick one versus that you saw, which was your favorite versus?
That is hard because there is a top three.
Okay. I'll let you slide. Give me a top three.
No particular order.
Okay.
one that always stood out was Erykah Badu and Jill Scott.
Yes,
that's a good one. So this was a little different. I'm probably forgetting some of them, honestly. There was so many and so long. But did you watch the one with Neo and what's his name? The other producer. He did like Mariah Carey songs, Chris Brown. Why can't I remember?
I didn't see that one. I know who you're talking about. I didn't see that.
Is that in August? Something. Okay. That was amazing. Only
Really?
because it was like hit for hit, and it was cool because it was like different artists. And then you got to see, oh, he did that song. I didn't know he wrote that song, and it was just back to back, like Mariah Carey, and then Neo's bringing out his own stuff.
Okay,
and that one was pretty cool. But I think my favorite was Snoop and DMX. The vibe was it was so like organic, and to watch them rapping each other's songs and really getting into it like that, I loved watching. I think that was my favorite.
I think, wow, if I had to pick, it's hard to pick. Like you said, it's hard to pick one. I really enjoyed Jill Scott and Erykah Badu. I was there for that one because I love both of those ladies and both of their catalogs. What was the other one that I loved? Red and Meth. That was dope.
Yeah,
that was dope.
Yep.
I love Red and Meth. I even loved. I loved it was a little discombobulated, but I loved D'Angelo. That was more of a performance. Yeah, that was more of a performance. That was dope because I mean D'Angelo don't come outside for nobody. So, so just to have D'Angelo on stage was something else. KRS-One and Big Daddy Kane.
Yeah.
Listen,
I saw both of them live.
Yes.
Yeah.
I probably say my favorite was much like you, Snoop and DMX. Obviously now because DMX is no longer with us, but because they were there, and it's a little different too because as fears and people kind of opened up a little bit, the pandemic changed and stuff. So Snoop and DMX were able to be in the same place. We didn't get a versus with Timbaland and Swiss Beats in the same place, or Erykah Badu and Jill Scott in the same place, or Teddy Riley and Babyface in the same place. Which
that would have been cool because I love both of them. If Teddy hadn't been trying to,
he was doing too much
production.
He was doing too much. So yeah, those are probably my favorite. Was there one that? Because I missed some that, I mean, if I wasn't interested, I just wasn't tuning in. What was the worst one for you?
Of the ones I tuned in, who was it? Oh my God. Who did Rick Ross go against?
Oh, Rick Ross had a versus? I didn't even see that one.
It was, I like Rick Ross, but it was like Rick Ross, and I think it was, see, this is where I'm going to sound old. I can never remember. Or it's not 2 Chainz. What's his name? Ty Dolla $ign.
Oh wow, damn!
I think it was that.
Okay. But
the reason why that one was bad, having strippers or dancers come out. And Rick Ross took off his shirt. He's getting his back rubbed, or like y'all doing too much. Like it's like you're doing the verses not for the right reason.
Right.
And I'm not like a huge Rick Ross, but I was like, oh, Rick Ross, that's cool.
Right.
Could have done without that one. And I feel that, 112 and Jagged Edge, that would have been cool if they hadn't had crappy service. I don't know if it was just me and other people, but their connection was awful. There was no flow to it. That could have been something, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was disappointing because, like you said, they weren't in a position where they could be in the same place, and people had fears of COVID, so they weren't doing these in the same place. And you're right, the connection was bad. What was the worst that I actually saw? It was Bone Thugs and what was it 3-6 Mafia? I think that's what it was.
I turned that one off.
Yeah, I turned it off too. Like before the fight actually happened, I think I turned it off. I was like,
yeah.
I literally had it on for like 5 minutes. I was like, nah, I'm gonna skip this one.
I like a couple 3 6 Mafia songs, like Bone Thugs. I like more than them. But when all that extra stuff started happening, I was like, next, I don't want to see this. Like,
yeah. And then by that time too, people started being outside. So asking someone to be in the house and sit and watch this on a computer or a phone or a tablet or a TV for 3 hours, that's asking a lot.
Yeah. And I was still cool. I forgot. Back it up. I'm gonna take out Neo.
Okay.
Earth, Wind, and Fire and Isley Brothers. I forgot it. How did I forget about that one?
You just made me think about one too. The Locks and Dipset.
Yes.
Should I say Jadakiss versus Dipset?
Man, versus everybody else, because
Jadakiss killed it.
He could have done that by himself.
Easily. I mean, like after that versus, if you weren't a fan of Jadakiss, I don't know what was wrong with you, because he tore it down. Yeah. But yeah, that was a great one. That was one for the ages. That was one for the ages.
Oh my God, SWV and Escape.
Well,
I forgot about that one. Just to watch, here's the thing. I don't know.
I'm not a fan of Escape. I love SWV.
Oh yeah, same here. Escape, nah. But I feel that having those two groups, because when you think of like R&B, like 90s groups, they're the top. I would say top what, 3? Yeah, the top 3. They're up there.
That's fair.
But I don't know if you know, like before, one of them witnessed on SWV, I think it was Coco, she witnessed like somebody get shot and killed like right before. So she was all like mentally all over the place. She didn't get herself together. If you could ever go back and watch it, she didn't get herself together until like mid-show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And because I was like, okay, it's kind of weird. Like there's just some weird vibe. And then that was why. But I forgot about them. But if you could pick, I
said we saw some good ones though.
We did, we really did. But if you could pick 2 people you didn't get to see go up there, who would you have wanted to see?
Who didn't? Well, you know what was weird is that it seems like everybody did a versus.
I have 2 people I wish did, and
I would have loved to. I mean, it wouldn't have been well, it was possible, but I knew it wasn't going to happen. I would have loved to have seen Outkast versus A Tribe Called Quest.
That would have been a good one.
That would have been it for me.
Yeah.
Cass and Tribe. That would have been it for me. I got on my Cass shirt today. So
nice. I got on Mary J. In case you didn't
I see.
What
about you?
Busta Rhymes and Missy Elliott.
Did Busta even have a versus?
No.
Okay. Oh wow.
And I put them. It could have been Luda and Missy or Busta and Missy, either one, because I feel they're all kind of like that out there, but commercial enough. And I would have liked to have seen either Busta or Luda. I know Luda did Nelly, and that one, the service was garbage too.
Yeah.
But either of them against Missy, I would have liked to have seen.
Okay, so before we get off the verses, one more question. At the time of this recording, there is going to be, from what I understand, another versus coming. Jermaine Dupri versus Puff. I guess they'll be playing. There's the discographies, the catalogs, and I want to say it's like the 4th of July, I think, or somewhere around there.
Shoot. And I took the day off. So,
are you sitting and watching and listening to Jermaine Dupri versus Puff?
I am.
Okay.
Because if you know those 2 and you know the tracks that they have touched, if they're going to do it like how Swiss and Timbaland did, and Neo and can't remember that man's name, and Teddy and Babyface, they'll do some of their own, but really they've got so many different people. I'm watching that. Because I guarantee you I'm going to be like, I had no idea he did that one. I had no idea he did that one. So I'm watching that.
Yeah, I think I don't think that I don't think I couldn't see me not watching it.
Yeah.
You know, because not like a game will be on or something like that. And then, you know, part of the enticement of watching the verses back then was, you know, people chiming in and stuff like that. And literally, I mean, when you talk about the hits, Puff and Jermaine Dupri really could go on all night. They got more than hits. So, as for us and our verses here, what we're going to get into is, like I said, we're going to talk about two albums. A lot of people, not just Britt and I, but a lot of people consider these albums to be classic. Now, the word classic is, you know, it's a word that's used by fans. We've talked about it on this podcast before. It's something that other fans use to talk, and it's a term that they use for creating a debate, if you will. But you're not really putting value on a particular album. Whether something is or isn't a classic, or whether it's good or it's not, sometimes has to do with people's favorites. I mean, let's just be real. It's a way for people to talk about albums that everybody loves, and it also shows, you know, people's connection to the music. But the flip side of it, on this episode, what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to look at the debut album and the sophomore album from Mary J Blige, What's the 411 versus My Life. We'll examine both albums, and we're going to judge both albums. But as I mentioned at the top, we're going to have a criteria. We'll examine them, and we're going to score them on a score from 1 to 5. The criteria will be discussed by the two of us on this episode, and I'll get into it in just a second. And basically, what we're going to do is we're going to try to numerically, when it's all said and done, total it and make a definitive determination as to which album is better. Now, here's the criteria. It's 5 things: coherence, impact, replayability, lyrics, and production. That's the 5 criteria. And we're going to total it you're going to score from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest for each one. So let's get started right there. Coherence. Now, I'm going to give you guys a brief synopsis of what we deem coherence to be. Coherence is often a theme in this particular album. Something that the artist is going through. Occasionally, it produces a concept album, but you know, doesn't necessarily have to be the rule. Sometimes the emotion of an album and the emotion of life can be so strong that the albums are recorded in a particular space, and that's just like where the artist's head is at. Good albums can conjure emotion in a listener just from a few songs. Great albums do it consistently. So, coherence. When we're talking about coherence for What's the 411, what is the number that you're going to give coherence for What's the 411, and why?
And this is 1 through 5?
Mm-hmm. With 5 being the highest.
Oh my God. And see, and I'm an overthinker, so I'm going back and forth myself. I was doing that when I was listening. I got the little description written in front of me that you sent me.
Mm-hmm.
For that, I'm gonna give it. Oh my gosh, because when you talk about like conjuring emotion and everything, I think I'm gonna give that. Can I do halves?
Yeah, this is your
3.5 on that one.
Okay.
For that first one.
Coherence. Okay.
Yeah. And the reason why is because not that she didn't have feeling, but if we're comparing the two, there's more feeling in that second one than this one. And a lot of times with somebody's first album, unless you're Prince and do all of it by yourself, you've got other people like, this track is good for you. Not saying she didn't write any of them, but this track, you need to do this one on your first one. This one, it's not really who you are completely. Yes, some of that is her, but like the authentic, the pureness of whatever it is that's in your heart, that's your heart, but then you've got somebody else's ingredients thrown in there as well.
Right.
That's why.
As far as coherence for me, I'm gonna give it a 4. I think it's not an emotional album, but I think the album gives off emotions of joy and fun and happiness. Particularly in her upbeat tracks, songs like Reminisce, You Remind Me,
Love.
yeah, Real Love.
Real
I
love,
mean,
yeah, you're searching for a real love, but like it's in a positive way. It's not
right,
like, oh, I'm
right.
alone and you know.
And that particular time, like I just remember in being outside, a song like Real Love was like that was like the young ladies,
Mm-hmm.
anthem. You know what I'm saying? Like that was a joint. And I think that song and the subsequent songs on this particular album, and then obviously My Life, helped propel Mary J. Blige to a certain stratosphere, particularly with women who were around my age,
Mm-hmm.
to a level that we hadn't seen in someone who was basically our age and our contemporary. So you said 3.5. Let me write these down. So 3.5, and I had 4. All right. So My Life, coherence. What you got for My Life?
I'm gonna give that a 4.
Okay.
I don't know if you listened to that album on Apple Music, but there's commentary. The album is not separate. It's like the commentary album. So you listen to the track, or actually no, you get the commentary first and then you hear the track. You get the comment, and it's her talking about each track. And so I had to put all of them in a folder, and then I went back and listened to the ones with the commentary and without, because she's giving you the background, why this song, this, and this. But I wanted to hear how it flowed all together too. Like,
Okay.
but I'll give it a 4 because with the commentary, you get the backstory and you hear all of what she's gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And then I told you I watched Unsung, so I know some of the background stuff on both of these albums. But right. She had gone through a lot at this point, and I feel like you just hear it more in her voice while she's singing, even the lyrics itself, but that's another category. But just you can hear it in her voice, the pain and the hurt and the things she's gone through. So I'm giving that a little bit more. Not quite a 5 for me, but it would be a 4.
Yeah, I got to give that a 5. I think there's so much emotion. Well, one, I listened to it on Spotify. I didn't know Apple had that. I don't have Apple Music, but I didn't know they had that feature. But that's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave it a 5 because like that's one of the things to me that jumps out is just the emotion of whatever it was that she was feeling on those particular days that she wrote or sang on this album. And it was it's something that you can't ignore. Like, I think it's a piece where, if somebody just, if you'd never heard My Life before and you sat a 15-year-old young man or young lady down and had them listen to it, they'd understand it. But if you played it for a 25 or 26-year-old, they'd feel it.
Right.
So I think life lessons would have, gotten them to that point where they would feel it. So I think that album brings out a lot of emotions. I think it's very coherent all the way through. So yeah, I'm giving that a 5. So then the next category is impact. Now, impact, people talk about impact a lot, Britt. Impact is something that's very hard to measure. One, because and I'll give you an example. Like if I say somebody like Tupac meant a lot to people like us who were, he had an impact on people like us who were alive when he was alive. Or we were around. Well, we're still alive, but we were around when he was he was alive, as opposed to if you're talking to someone who, is 25, who wasn't around when he was alive, or maybe they were a baby when he was alive, and they didn't really, and let's say they study Tupac and they understand his music and they become a huge fan or whatever, but you weren't there to see those raw emotions and things come out in his music. So impact is something I think is very hard to quantify. I don't get into it with people when they start talking about impact, but we define impact as if an album doesn't necessarily receive immediate critical acclaim, the repercussions and influence of the album can be measured across time. So with that being said, Britt, what do you have for impact for What's the 411?
Look, I gotta go back to the track list real quick.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I'll be honest. I heard Mary J Blige's songs when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually listen to albums because my family just didn't listen to Mary J like that. Okay. I didn't listen to albums till I was like high school or later.
Mm-hmm.
So impact for What's the 411? I'm honestly gonna go with the 4. I think it's set a lot for R&B women, even in the 90s, and then going forward. See, and I'll get into the other technical stuff later. But yeah, like you said earlier about women or females, whatever, listening to her and listening to those upbeat songs, it does something. I don't know. The impact, like you said, that's a hard one to really, it could go any direction.
Right.
It really, I feel impact is more of a personal thing. Facts. When it comes to music, unless she was, Black Panthers and, really a personal preference, I guess, right, when it comes to impact.
No, I agree. That it is always hard to quantify. Because it is something personal, because, even going back to using Tupac as an example, the impact that he had on me might not be the same impact he had on Baylor. And the impact he had on Baylor may not be the same impact he has on you. But as far as this album, I think this album was very impactful, particularly, not so much as for me, but particularly because I was in college when this album came out. And I just know how every woman at South Carolina State University revered this album, because like you couldn't go anywhere and not hear it. If you were riding in the car, somebody was playing it. If you was in the boys' dorms, you was hearing it. If you was in the girls' dorms, you were hearing it. So, and Mary J Blige quickly became like somewhat of a shero for young ladies, at our collegiate level age people. So
especially the fact that she was a New York woman in the hood.
Yes.
And
yeah, she wasn't like polished up like Whitney.
Mm-mm.
She didn't come from
right,
a famous family like Janet. She was your roundaway girl.
Yeah.
Simply put. And then like when you saw the video for Real Love, she's got baseball caps. She's in jerseys. Her dancers in jerseys. They're in boots. Yep. She looks like a B-girl.
Yeah.
So I would say impact, I'm giving this a 4.5. I think that was a long-lasting thing for Mary J Blige. And I think that What's the 411 album really kind of catapulted her to shero status. Now, conversely, impact, My Life. Talk to me about that one.
I think I'm going to just stick with the 4. Almost the same, like how far apart were these? I don't even remember. 94 and
94, 92.
Years. Yeah. I mean, she was still the around the way girl, but I won't say she was polished, but she was more feminine, I guess. Like that part showed more, I'll say, with the second album. And that was, once again, the feeling and the emotion and the heartbreak in that album. Yeah, you had songs and stuff that like others did that brought it, but like to have a whole album that's really about the hurt that you've gone through and that was relatable, I'm gonna give it a 4. But yeah, I feel it was more impactful on that painful side.
Okay. I gotta give it a 5. I gotta give it a 5 because if you were outside at the time, if you had lived, if you had had your little heart broken once or twice, you you really felt this album. And I think where What's the 411 is an incredibly dope album. My life catapulted her, like I said, to shero status because I think there are a lot of people, both men and women at the time, who were going through what she was going through.
Mm-hmm.
And, keep in mind that she has a very, very public relationship that's on display with KC from Jodeci.
Mm-hmm.
And then they break up. I mean, like, KC was on the first album, a duet.
Yep.
They have a duet on the first album. And, it's kind of hard to put this into words, but like, just imagine you're this budding star, and then your label mate, boyfriend, all of these rumors are swirling about him cheating on you and hitting you and all kinds of stuff like that. And you're dealing with all of this stuff. But see, back in '94, there was no Twitter. There was no social media.
Social media.
So, all the stuff we heard was just here. I mean, some of the stuff that I heard about their relationship, I don't know if it's true to this day because that's just what was said. So you either believe it or you don't. But she was able to take all of that pain, suffering, and joy, because there's joy in this album, and she put it all into into this album, and she put her heart and soul into this album, and I think it's poetic, but also tragic to some degree, because I think this is her best work. And it's the worst time in her life.
But that's probably where you get the best poetry, the best songs, everything is.
So tough, though. Yeah, that's so tough for an artist, because it's like, I mean, think about it. If you go to a Mary J Blige concert, you want to hear My Life.
Yeah.
She's literally singing about like the darkest time in her life. I mean, like, I don't know I guess because of my spirit and who I am as a person, how upbeat I am, I don't know if I'd be one. If I had the saddest day of my life, I don't think I want to be singing about it for me.
And not in front of everybody, no.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe in the shower, maybe in the backyard, but not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I Impact, I got to give it a 5. I think this took her from that hood girl, that roundaway girl, that B girl, to, I think this album took her to what would be the next step, which would be superstar status to me. Mm-hmm. And again, I think there's a certain level of relatability wherein I don't know if necessarily fans could, or I don't want to say fans. I'm going to make it clear. Young black women. I don't think young black women at this point in her second album, if I had to compare her to Janet or to Whitney or to Aretha or whomever else that was out, I don't think young black women related to them the way that they related to her at this particular time, because she made it seem, and when you listen to her, particularly like in interviews and stuff like that, she looked and sounded just like the girl next door.
Right.
And I don't think, you didn't get that from Janet, you didn't get that from Whitney, and they're not in any type of competition, but I think the impact of this album kind of took her there.
Yeah, she was just different than all the other women who were popular
right
at that time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I gotta let me write this down. Okay, so Impact, you gave. What'd you give My Life again? You gave.
We both had a 4.
4. Okay, so you got a 4, and okay, and I gave it a 5. All right. So then we go to replayability. Replayability. That's when you basically playing this album again. Yeah, I mean, do they have enough quality songs to make subsequent visits back to the album worthwhile? From your personal experience, you should have at least a minimum of 6 dope songs for replayability. How are you scoring replayability for What's the 411?
That's a 5 for me.
Okay.
I got that one through, not skip a song. and I can listen to that one over and over again. Hands down, it's the upbeat songs. They're catchy, they get you. And yeah, she's got, some slower and like, I'm feeling like this today kind of songs. But that one, I'm not skipping one song on there. So that's a 5 for me.
Okay. I will agree. However, I got to give it 4.5. And the only reason why I knock it down a peg is because of I'm Going Down. I'm Going Down was on the Wait and Exhale soundtrack.
Yeah.
And then they put it on what's the 411?
No, they didn't. I'm Going Down is on My Life.
You know what? My bad. I got them mixed up. Okay, so replayability, that gets a 5. You're right.
That is one of my reasons why. That's one of my reasons why the next one gets a 4.
Okay, so that's why I'm going to give that 4.5. Because I skipped that song. I skipped that song. Okay, so replayability.
Yeah. When you like certain songs by the original artists, and because here's the thing too, on the first album, she's got Sweet Thing. That was Shaka Khan and Rufus.
Yep.
But for me, she did all right on that one. Like, not saying she did bad on I'm Going Down, but and wait,
you know what it was?
That's
what it was for me.
Waiting to Exhale.
Yeah, you know what it was for me? I think it was on Waiting to Exhale soundtrack, and the song was huge, but by the time it got to My Life, we were tired of it. Like I didn't need to hear it.
Exhale soundtrack, though. I just thought about that. That's not Gonna Cry.
Okay, so wait a minute. Okay, so now I'm confused. Okay, so
the second album still gets a 4 for me. I have other songs that are making it that way. But
what was on that? What was on that soundtrack?
Not Gonna Cry.
I'm Going Down was on. Hold up.
No, I'm Going Down was on her album. That's not.
I could have sworn that was on it, and I could be wrong.
I think she only had Not Gonna Cry. Hold on.
And this is a great part about doing live episodes.
Yeah, it's Not Gonna Cry. She's not.
Okay, so I'm Going Down.
Because yeah, Waiting to Exhale was in '95.
Well, what was I'm Going Down had to be on somebody's soundtrack. I got tired of that song. I just know I got tired of it. I thought it was on.
They played it out.
Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I got tired of that song.
No, I agree, but I like Rolls Royce better than that. I don't know why. It's not that Mary J can't sing, but I don't care for her version all that much compared to Rolls Royce. And then, hold on, I had the track list posted up here because there's something else on that. So I can include that in this category. The problem I have with Mary J's albums, because Puffy did work on both. Sampling, that's just gonna happen. Right. But that's a lot of what Puffy does. And I feel that she had more songs that weren't hers than other stuff. Like in the Commentary album, she talks about how like she just loved this track and blah blah, and that's cool, you can sing on it. But a lot of those, especially in the 90s, they weren't overplayed, overused by then. So the sampling, when I listen to it now, I'm really tired of it. But even then, I just like the originals better. So she had Mary Jane. That's All Night Long by the Mary Jane Girls.
Of course.
And then you have, there's another one she did. Okay, so My Life is actually a sample. I'll let that slide because that's like one of the best songs on the album, but that's a sample. And then I'm Going Down is not, like, there's just so many samples. And it's one thing if you're sampling the instruments, but when you're sampling and then you're using words.
Or just doing a whole remake.
Yeah. I'll pass. Okay. So that's where it gets a point knocked off for me. It's still a good album, but I can also skip some songs on there that I'm just like, the slower ones. But
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I apologize for being wrong. I thought that it was. I thought that I'm going down. I could have sworn I'm going down was on somebody's soundtrack. It might not have been, but I got tired of it really, really quick. So by the time it got to the album, I was like, so that's the only skip for me on that album. Replayability again, I'm going 4.5. But and like I told you before we came on, like I'm at the point and been at the point for years now where I never listen to these albums apart. I always listen to them back to back. If I start with My Life, I'll go to the first album. If I start with the first album, I'll go back to My Life. That's just how it is. I think they're just together like that. And last but not least, we gotta go with the lyrics. Now, when you talk about,
You got 2 more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I'm at 4. Lyrics.
Yes.
When you talk about lyrics, how does the artist sound with their words? Do the words ring in your ear? Do the words create memories? So for what's the 411? What do you have for lyrics?
Seeing this, scoring on this is personal experience. See, but what's that? My Life has more song. I don't know. This is hard because I can relate to both of them a lot. Let me see what's on this one. Reminisce, Real Love. Shit. You got Reminisce, Real Love, You Remind Me, Sweet Thing, Love No Limit. I don't want. Okay, look, this is getting a 5 already. Right. I Don't Want to Do Anything, Slow Down My Love, Changes I've Been Going Through. That's getting a 5. I like each song. Shoot, I think that's because it's where I am right now. Currently, that's
Changes I've been going through.
Because although she paints the picture of how someone really is feeling in those moments, it just all flows together. It goes together. And you can just you can relate to it, but you can see it. Even if you're not the one going through those, Facts. You can see it, or you'll think of a movie where like, oh, that's probably how they were feeling or whatever. You can feel that. So I'll give that one a 5. Yeah. I might go ahead and listen to this one.
Yeah, when you talk about lyrics, I saw you before. Is it deja vu, honey? Don't you know that you remind me? You remind me of a love I once knew. Is it a dream or is it deja vu? Come on, man. What are we talking about? It's a 5 for me. Lyrically, I think, and without even looking at it, I'm sure Mary J Blige didn't write most of this album, but just the words and what she put into the words, it definitely brings back memories. I'm searching for real love, something that'll set my heart free. Real love. I can go on and on. Changes I've been going through. I mean, come on, man.
Love No Limit is one of my favorites.
There's no need to. Come on, man.
Yeah.
What about My Life lyrics?
That one's tough because if you've had your heart broken, there are very relatable. I might do a 4.5 on this one, and I'm only saying that because I've heard the commentary, so I have that information in my head too. And I mean, she wrote more songs, I feel, on this one, but like I said, I can skip songs on this just because I'm not really feeling them that way. And like I'm going down, not hers. Mary Jane. It's just some of these songs. Yes, she's got songs where you feel the pain and you can hear the hurt and everything. But she's got some songs in it too where you kind of just did that because you were feeling that. And she even said that in some of the commentary, like, "Oh, I loved this track, blah blah. I sang it." And one of them, Marvin Interlude.
Okay.
She said,
"Yep."
She probably didn't do it justice, and this. It was just something she was feeling at that time. Well, that's her.
Because that was an interlude that actually, I think they made it into a song at some point.
Yeah. And that was her own, what she was just feeling at that time. Let me go in here because I'm feeling this. And that's cool. And that's what you do as an artist. But if I'm going to talk about lyrics and all that as a whole entire album, I'm going to give it 4.5.
Okay. So 4.5 for the lyrics. All right. So you did 4.5. For me, my life, I'm biased.
I think I am too.
This gets a 5 for me. If you listen to the first verse of My Life, that defines this album. Period, point blank. I think it defines this album in such a way that most fans of this album really, really relate. And I think people really identify with it. So yeah, I gotta give it a 5 for My Life. 5 for My Life. Last but not least, production. How does the album sound? How is it sequenced? How does it flow? Britt, what's the 411? What you got?
So 5. And I already said it because I don't have to skip any songs. I'm not like, it goes just how it should, and I can play it and do something else and let that thing just ride out. So it's a 5.
Okay. Same for me. I give it a 5. I think it's very well produced. I think it's very well sequenced. Ironically, both albums have one song that I don't particularly care for because I don't particularly care for the Rolls Royce song, the remake. But Puffy was the king of the remake, so we let him slide. Yeah. Yeah, that album is very cohesive. It flows like, and here's how you know, particularly when we move from having tapes to CDs. Here's how you know if an album is sequenced well. If you can put an album on shuffle and be cool with whatever song it hits, you got yourself a good album, a really good album. It's a very well sequenced album. Now, if you hit it on shuffle, you're like, nah, I don't feel like this, and you go to the next song, it's probably not sequenced well.
Yep.
Probably not sequenced well. What about My Life? Where you got that?
It's getting a 4.
Okay.
Skip songs, and then sometimes there's a certain vibe that gets going, and then it gets brought down by another song that's just a little too slower. It just doesn't feel like it fits, and that's really towards like I Never Want to Live Without You is one that stuck out in my head. I was like, I could skip, and I can. The two songs I like the most from My Life, I will say, is My Life and Be Happy. And those are the most relatable ones for me too. But all these other ones, like I like them, but I just don't. That's where I'm biased. You like what you like, and this one is just, it's barely beating the other one for me personally. But yeah, I think it's a 4.
Okay. Yeah, when you mention, and I mentioned this on episodes before, but Never Want to Live Without You, that was the song that I heard when I met my wife in college. So I'm extremely biased, so that's like my joint. So I get the thug get a little emotional when that joint come on, Britt. So even to this day, so yeah, I love that. So I'm never skipping that song. But no, I got you. I feel you on that. Yeah, it
could be where I am in my life too. Like that, I'm more right now. I'm more of what's the 411. I am My Life. You had asked me like 3-4 years ago, it would have been My Life. But right now, no. Like, but let's just move Be Happy over to what's the 411, and that's shoot, everything on what's the 411 would be a 5 then.
And Be Happy is such a cold song. It's so cold. Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's I think the lyrics and the production is, like I said, it flows. Both albums, Both albums I think flow immaculate. And like I said, I'm at the point now, Britt, where I just listen to. But I think you make a really good point, and I think that's something that maybe music fans don't necessarily think about a lot. Is that it depends on where you are in your life. I mean, if you're in the thugged out stage of your life, you're probably not listening to a bunch of slow love music.
No. No, you're not.
If you're coming out of a heartbreak, or if you're in a relationship, you might be listening to something a little different, So
yep. It's amazing where you are in life will change things like that. If you are a music listener, because some people just aren't. But if you relate to music and put it to whatever you're going through in life, yeah.
So my next question is, throughout this process, because I know you and I both listened to both of these albums, was there something that you learned that you didn't know before, either about the album or about yourself, or maybe what you felt about the albums, that you didn't know before?
I said earlier, I never really listened to her like that, and I listened to songs on the album, but I never sat and listened to them all the way through. So I didn't realize how much I actually liked What's the 411. I just knew I liked songs on there. Because I spent 3-4 days of that's all I listened to.
Wow.
It was repeat, just have it on. Okay, I'm cooking, I'm doing whatever. Just repeat, listen. And that's when I could tell too with my life, where I was like, all right, skip this one. I don't feel like hearing this one again. But learning that the different sounds from both albums, but you can still recognize her. She is still a major part of this. So some people have albums and you're like, oh, that's just something somebody else wrote, and she's singing it. But you see where the root of both albums is her. And then even hearing the different sounds, this is not necessarily about Mary J, but she had more people working on the second one than she did the first one. Yeah. So you can kind of hear how the sound changes. You can hear which one's Puffy's on. You can hear which one somebody else has done. I did not know that JoJo actually wrote one of the songs on the second album, which Casey was on the first one. And then the second one, you actually had JoJo. So I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and they're broken up. Casey and Mary J had broken up by the time that album came out.
Yeah. So that was really shocking. I was like, oh, okay. Wonder how that went down.
Probably not easy.
Yeah. I just didn't realize how much I actually liked What's the 411 to this. So
I think the thing that I took from this was it was something I think I always knew, but I really, really fell in love with both of these albums, and I was able to go back to the time period in which I did. This is only a 2-year difference, but just personally speaking, one album comes out, I'm single in college, I'm ready to mingle. I was running around, if you will. The next album comes out around the same time that I meet the woman that I would eventually marry. Different mindset. I'm settling, and I'm on the back end of my college career. So I'm a little bit more settled. I'm a little bit more focused, and I was able to just really hone in on the music. So I can't necessarily say that I love one more than I love the other. Slightly. I love my life more because my life means a little bit, because when I think about my life, I think about where I was, and then I think about my wife, I think about Sharice. But Britt, I'm gonna tell you something. I tallied the numbers. For you, My Life came in at 21. What's the 401 came in at 22.5.
Just barely.
Barely. For me, What's the 411? 24.5. My Life, 24.5. I promise you I didn't do that on purpose.
Well, you get to pick which side you want to be.
Yeah, I'm picking my life. I'm picking my life. With the slightest of it, slightest.
But
of
when
it.
you have that personal experience or personal, like, this connection to it, it's different. Like I said, if you had done this with me literally 3-4 years ago, I guarantee you my life would have more just because of where I was in life.
Gotcha.
Now, what's the 411?
So we're gonna come back and do this in 3 years and see where you at.
Yeah.
We're gonna see where
it might
you at.
change. It might go back and forth. Who knows?
Right.
Yeah. But I do have more of a respect for my life because I never listened to it like that. I knew songs. I didn't know all of them. I do have a new respect for it though. We'll play it more, but
I know you mentioned "Be Happy." What did you think about her ending the album with that? Because I think that's genius.
A message.
Yes,
ass.
I think so too.
Because the lyric is the chorus is, all I really want is to be happy, to find a love that's mine, and be so free. Like, yeah. And she's the whole album. She is talking about like, okay, the pain, she's gone through everything else, and she just wants to get to this point. She said it in My Life, where I cannot remember how it exactly goes, but she's basically saying, like, be at peace with yourself.
Yes.
And be at peace with God, and everything else will fall into place. Like, I've seen all kinds of stuff, but if I just find my peace, my connection with God, everything else will be all right.
I thought that was so ingenious to put that as the last song on the album. And then I don't know if you remember the video, she was like standing on top of a mountain, and you got this camera, helicopter circling around her and everything. And she gave you so much hurt and so much pain, all the way through this album, and she ends it on a very upbeat note, and that's the last thing that she leaves us with. And I just want to, life is too short to be trying to play some games. I'm like, really? I'm like, you speaking to everybody now.
Yep.
So I think the lyrics in that song just really, very relatable content. Very relatable content. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that made me think of that question. But yeah, this is the first of many verses. This was fun, Britt. This was fun. I like the fact
all day. I told you I took the wrong career path. And getting paid.
Yeah, this was fun. This was fun to do because we got familiar with 2 incredible albums, and hopefully the listeners, if you guys haven't, make sure that you go and listen to both of these albums. Listen to them repeatedly, because I think you'll be able to get something from it. I think that's the biggest thing that one of the biggest takeaway that we both can say is that we got something from these albums. Before we get out of here, Britt, tell folks where they can catch you at it, if they can catch you at all.
Right now it's just Twitter. I'm going on 3 months of no Facebook, no Instagram, no Snapchat.
There you go.
So good. What did Mary J say? All I really want is to be happy. That's what it took.
It is.
Getting off the socials, but on Twitter it's Britty18, Britty 18.
For sure. And you guys have been listening long enough. You can catch me on the Twitter streets at 12 Kyle. 12 Kyle across the board. Remember, this podcast drops every Thursday at midnight. We drop bonus episodes sometimes on Sundays as well. Subscribe, download, share with your mom, your cousin, your uncle, and them, everybody. And remember that if you want to hit us up on Cash App, $, TWELVEKYLE. So that's going to do it for us again. Britt, thanks for coming through. The verses, the first of many. This was What's the 411 versus My Life. That's going to do it for us. So for my girl Britt, I'm your boy 12 Kyle. We'll catch you guys next time. 5,000.